requests. So I feel like there were kind of like two flavors of this. Like the one flavor was we wanted to decline requests that are sort of like unrelated to getting support. Like we are paying for the LLM, so we didn't want folks to be logging on and asking it to write their history paper for their college class or something, right? So I had to, so I worked on the prompt to kind of like help sandbox some of that. Another type of flavor of things that we didn't want to have it talk about were like billing questions. We don't have it hooked up to any billing data. So like anything that it's going to come up with about like a billing related question is you're practically asking it to hallucinate. So we're like, if you think that they're asking about billing, please politely decline, like because you don't know what you're talking about. And the idea there is that we're hoping to build some user trust by like acknowledging like when we know the thing isn't going to be able to give you a good answer. And then we were on to the tuning RAG search for relevance blog entry, where we wanted to create a finely tuned, artificially intelligent computer machine. So how do we do it? We had to help it help you, Jerry Maguire style. So the baseline approach was keyword searches and semantic searches. Take the search results, inject them into the prompt context. That was doing pretty good. And then what we did with that was we put that in front of our internal folks. And then we gave them like these nice little thumbs up, thumbs down here. This was a nice answer, so I can hit thumbs up. I can also add additional comments if I want. And I think I'm going to cancel. I forget if that actually sounds like but we use that to help us find out what are the questions and answers that are giving good results versus bad results. The folks can like help explain to us like what was good or bad about it. And then we also capture like what search results were given. And so where that ended up playing into things was, gathering feedback. So that was helpful for explaining to us, well, what kinds of queries were we ending up with bad generation for? And ultimately, we kind of ended up deciding that a lot of our not great answers were really related to having not great search results. Because you kind of still have like a garbage in, garbage out situation here, where like if you have bad search results, well, like bad search results feeding that context, well, at best, you're sort of maybe throwing out some sort of like a distraction for it. At worst, you might be misleading it into thinking that something is relevant that is absolutely not. And so if you kind of point the LLM in a bad direction with the search results, you're gonna get worse answers. And so some of the most common things that we saw people asking about and saying that they weren't getting results were for the CVEs that I used as my demo earlier, and also when people were asking to either like compare features from different product versions, or even just asking about something in a specific version. The problem with the CVEs was that we just weren't getting great matches, but the way we came up with our idea for getting better ones was that all the CVEs in the title have like that CVE year dash whatever in it. And so what we found is that if we use the elastic like querying features to boost the matches if you hit the title on a CVE type document, then we wanted that to count more. And then semi-related for product versions, we found that if we could use the collapse feature and try and pre-detect what version the person was trying to ask about, then we could specifically tell the search results, don't give me any results that aren't for that specific version, so that now we're also more aligned with feeding LLM accurate, solid context. And then our way that we wanted to measure success was we created a test suite of questions and then what search results we wanted. Not what we want the LLM to spit out, but like what were supposed to be the best search results for that. And my teammate Tony, ground on like coming up with just throwing a bunch of different configurations of like how much boost is the right amount of boost and lines it up the best. And after enough iterations, we kind of settled on those, and you can end up finding like the details of like what those Elasticsearch queries look like in the blog posts. Because often it was tempting to try and like squeeze one of these onto a slide, but like the text is either going to be like tiny or whatever. And so I decided you will be better served reading a blog post to learn more about that. That is not what happened any of the Okay, what's awesome though, because I can just argue with the thing I know the most about. And we'll have plenty of time for questions and stuff like that, so everybody can, do so with that. Yeah, so observability, it's great for knowing what is going on. For our data collection, you will not be surprised to hear that we use Elastic's APM, application performance monitoring solution. I'll make a pitch for, it's on our list of tech debt to migrate to OpenTelemetry, that is the new hotness. So yeah, maybe if you're gonna think about engaging in it, maybe you wanna hop on the OpenTelemetry thing. A fun thing that we did with it that I'm gonna have a chance to show you guys is doing log correlation. And what I mean by that is we have Filebeat slurping up our logs. But before we actually log things out, we ask APM, what are the current trace IDs for this request going on right now? And we print them in and we add them to the log output. And then what happens is as Filebeat brings that in, like, I don't know how it works, but it does something where it recognizes that like this giant trace ID number that it sees in the log line matches this existing trace ID in there, and now when I'm looking at my APM trace, I can see some related logs, and that's very helpful. Observability is also great for powering alerting. I should also say no, we already hit that Elastic is doing this. There are great alerting features that you can access through Kibana. We get to talk again about first generation timeouts. So in the UX one, the reason why we talked about first generation timeouts in the UX post was because initially we were doing it from the client side and we were just bailing out and tracking it there. But then we realized we kind of want to know when this is happening and decided that it was going to be easier to keep track of that than on the server side. Track it there, cut off the connection. Now we're already connected to APM instead of because I feel like we would have, if it was on the front end, we would have had to made a request to tell the thing that we timed out and So I think it was smart of us to move it there. And so now the timeouts are on the back end, giving us better observability there. And what we found is when the alerts for the first generation timeouts go off, unfortunately, there's not much we can usually do about it because we've almost always ended up concluding that Azure is having a bad day right now. And the reason why we're exceeding the 10 seconds is because it's just a little overloaded between, our usage and the other pay-as-you-go tenants coming in and it gets slowed down. The other thing that can happen is then once somebody hits one of these timeouts, well, we're telling them try it again, but they don't realize that it's because it's overloaded. So now they're thrashing it. The other one that people do is, we really need to add a layer to track how many tokens are going on with the context, because sometimes the results and the question the person asks are too many tokens. That is also not distinguished to be used on the end. And so they just keep sending the same too big requests through and through, and they keep hammering it until they give up. And then that also tends to, it must be because that ends up causing, we detect it as an error. Right, I capture the error that happens when the LLM says that's too many tokens, and that is also a thing I have an alert for. Declining requests. So, similar to, I want to know if my users are getting lots of timeouts, I was also interested in knowing when how often users were getting their request declined, because I'm maybe less concerned about a user's billing question getting declined, but I am very interested if somebody is trying very hard to get it to write their history paper. I'm gonna want to know that somebody's really trying hard to get past the sandboxing there. And then we can go to my blog post to see a picture of my status dashboard. I really want to show my boss has been really protective about stats and stuff. And I can also show you this neat ESQL query that I need to visualize returning users. But similarly, leadership does not want me telling you about our actual numbers for returning users. And I'd also like to show you a picture of an APM trace. And then I have this milestones dashboard, because I didn't just want the dashboarding to be about finding problems. I also wanted it to be about celebrating wins. We're going to go look at it. Let's see. I'm going to flip through a couple more slides. Yeah, this is where I tried to put a snippet in. We're going to go look at the snippet on the blog post because it's not even on syntax slide. You know what? Let's add a little extra something about alerting while we're here. You are like, be thoughtful in selecting your thresholds and integrating with something like APM or OpenTelemetry. The earlier you do it, like you might think like, oh, why do I need the observability until I'm ready to go to prod? But if you've already integrated the APM stuff and collecting it while you're in dev, well, now you've got some data that can tell you, well, I don't know, how long are most of the generations? You know, like what should I be setting my threshold at? Like what is actually typical in what we've seen? Now, of course, maybe your dev system runs a little different than the prod, because you might have some extra stuff, but it's at least getting you maybe in a ballpark. And then another thing I like to talk about with alerting is being thoughtful about like what kind of like communication channel are you using? Because like you don't want to like wake somebody up in the middle of the night with a page about something that's like, oh, hey, our 1,000th user this month did a tracking issue. That you don't want that to pay somebody. But maybe you do want to get a page if the system's falling down in the middle of the night. And then the other thing that I feel like is a little bit aspirational is keep it actionable. Where we're failing on this is, like, I can't do much about these first generation timeouts, but I still track them and alert on them anyways. But then it can also be kind of annoying when it's like, oh, well, I got this alert, but like, I don't actually have something that I can do about it. It's nice if you have a situation that you're detecting that has like a known like playbook, runbook type of situation. If you can get that going, that is very helpful. Okay, on the original slide, I already kind of talked about, oh, no, yes, adding a new thing. The thing I tried to tell you about the decline request is, well, how do I know when it declines? The way I know when it declines is that, one, I gave it a very specific, well, first step is I gave it a very specific message to spit out when it's declining a message, or declining a request. On the surface, that while I was testing, that was useful for being absolutely certain that the LLM was responding, like was giving me this answer because it decided that it shouldn't answer the question. It's also nice because then, like, you know, like somebody who's responding, like a legal or a marketing or whoever can tell you, oh, this is how we like to phrase it, and you can get it to say a very reliable thing. Where it ends up being great for observability is then what I do is, as I'm seeing the generation that's coming back, as it's streaming back to the front end, I collect up the tokens, and if when we get to the end, I see that the message that the bot gave back out matched my declined message, my declined request message that was injected into the prompt, then I know we declined it. I can capture it as like a little metric in APM, and now that can help us, with our observability situation. That's right, yeah. And so now we actually get to my little, what I call my semi-demo by scrolling through the thing. Okay, yeah, that's right. I preloaded this up with like a little piece of my sensor dashboard. So just to give you an idea of like what an Elastic dashboard for observability might look like. I very specifically put like some stuff that would be like a playbook, and then links over to APM, errors. Oh yeah, we had some full story stuff. I wanted to link out to that. I also have my milestone set for people to look at. But like I'm looking at things like, how's our RAG search latency? How is our generation latency? How long are the spans lasting? Because I set up these custom spans to help track, well, how long is the first generation when it doesn't time out, and how long is the full generation? Let's be part of that, I like that. You can also see like the seasonality, like it dips every week on the weekend, right? Because the people are not chatting as much. Charts up. If you want to see like a snippet of like, the snippet can be this small for setting up APM. You just need to give it a service name. There are some other stuff that you might want to add to it and everything, but like it's not heavy as long as you've got the environment variable set up to like there's some environment variables. Yeah, to let it know how to connect. To go. Let's look at an APM trace. If you've never seen like a trace from APM, I don't know. I just ended up finding this a little bit compelling. You can see on this one, like the first generation came out in like less than a second, and then this is like 2 point something seconds that we got to get the whole thing out. And and then you're ending up. It's also collecting stats where you can aggregate on those things and everything. Let's also look at, nice. This is the code that powers the first generation span and the full generation span. And so you can see, like, I kind of start by just defining them. The agent started, and I start the spans. I start them both at the same time because they're kind of starting at the same spot, but they end at different times. They're either going to end. The first generation one is either going to end because we got a token back, or it's going to end because it timed out. I think this also might clear out a couple things. Oh yeah, like we get everything moving. But yeah, but then we also check at the end, like if we got an outcome or not, and we're ending things. Nobody wants to start this whole word meeting. Oh, ESQL for that ended up being nice. I wish I could remember now. No, yeah, something about like the crunching one. Right. Okay, so this was supposed to be returning users, but the thing with like the window for aggregating across with normal aggregations in Elasticsearch, we're not going to make it like it just because you want to know if it came. Like how many different unique days they came across it. It's we'll keep moving. Sorry, I lost the thing. Okay, threshold, or did that. Oh yeah, we're gonna get the milestone dashboard. So this is the thing that I set up. I want to just kind of like keep track of us for like, okay, how many chats did we do in a day, and how many unique users came in a day, and then also just looking at like all-time completions, all-time unique users, how many in the last day, week, 30 days. And then I actually literally also set up alerts to just like email us with like, hey, congratulations everyone, we had like 500 customers in the last month and everything. And so I thought that was, kind of cute and fun for that. Special consideration, I think, yeah, so we talked about our first gen timeouts. This kind of gives you this is sort of the implementation of the first gen timeout and setting up the abort controller and busting out of that, having a standardized error message that then the APM data can collapse on nicely. Okay, yeah, this is the actual timeout part. So one. APM capture agent error is very nice. Yeah, anytime we had like an error with a model, I would sort of capture that up. The other fun thing we did, is we set up the LLM to be able to have, if we had multiple deployments going, we set it up so that like one of our chat strategies would set it up so that like if one model failed, it could try like another one that's like a backup and like give that a shot. And so. Yeah, I think what happens is like if our 4.0 model like declines a request or something, then we maybe like try to run it against like a mini model or something that we also have available just in case we can get something going with that. Let's see, decline request stuff. Yeah, this is all. Let's see. Yeah, this one's fun. So the other thing we wanted to do was make sure that people weren't like hammering the thing too hard, and but like in general, like we have one rate limit for in general in the application to make sure that people aren't spamming us too bad. But the rate limit we wanted to add for the LLM and like these chat situations was going to be like a little bit tighter. Like I think you can do like something like in the order of like 100 or something like that. But what we wanted to do is also make sure like that we weren't accidentally also like running away with costs on things. And so what I ended up doing was I looked at our internal usage data and figured out, well, like how much are our heaviest internal users using it? And it looks like what I found was that our top person was like doing like 70 in a day. And then basically I did some back of the envelope math and and decided that what is it? Yeah, and that was how I ended up picking. I tried to dial in like if you were chatting back and forth constantly, if you're going faster than that, then you're probably trying to do too much. Oh man, I forgot about this thing. We made these ban flags in our to like help be able to like block somebody from being able to use the assistant feature in case we decided somebody was trying to abuse it. We never actually. Good news, nobody ever actually tried to abuse it, so we didn't ever need to use the ban flags, but we also used it initially to sort of roll the thing out when we deployed it, and then we enabled everybody by giving everybody more like an allow flag as opposed to like a ban flag. Oh, yeah, the context reading our payloads. I already talked about that a little bit. You know what? I think I want to go. Yeah, I think it's questions. So here's the QR code for like the vlog series, and yes, we do. You want to talk about that? Yes.
Just curious, what are some incidents that you would determine or gauge as being bannable?
I think what I was kind of looking for was, somebody causing our rate limit to go off repeatedly, or if it looked like first generation timeouts were mostly being like with a single user, but like it definitely wasn't, that part was not going to be automated. It was more that we wanted to collect the data to be able to determine and decide that was happening, and then take a more like manual action for, trying to, And I think the other idea would be to, because these are our customers, they may be talking like, what's going on here? And those kind of like forward. And I'm sure there's like some salesperson that would have the non-pleasure of having to try and do that conversation. Is your hand up?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, one issue with prompt engineering is that you always don't have systematic responses. So, have you ran into a case where on one runtime, a customer asks for something, let's say to write a history report, and then another time they ask for the same thing, they don't really want to generate. Has there been any times where the LLM has done that, and have you implemented anything outside of the prompting to go ahead and say, whoa, hold it back, don't do that?
We don't have anything additional beyond the, engineering the prompt itself right now. Although I saw some stuff that makes it sound like, because Azure seems to have its own like detections for trying to like figure out like abuse and stuff like that. Every once in a while, our stuff will end up triggering that instead. Like somebody does that. But the implication of it seems to also be that maybe you can write your own implementation of that and stick that at an above layer instead of trying to inject some of those rules into the prompt. And I would certainly say that I'm personally curious as to how those two, how effective each is. Yes, in the front. Hey.
We did something like this for a blockchain story, and we ran into this issue. So I'm curious if you guys have defined a way to measure success. I guess are you maybe reducing human contact through these issues? Are you just noticing when people use it? Are they thumbs upping it? Like, was there any sort of thing you were watching?
So I feel like one of the ways that we kind of wanted to try and measure the success was with that returning users visualization. I think we're also generally looking at the case volume, but I also know we did something with full story where we tried to look at distinguishing people landing on a case create page and then ultimately maybe not filing a case, and they did do an assistant action, and trying to kind of collect that as sense of, well, how often are people doing that? And gosh, it's been long enough now since we collected those and reported on that I also don't. Well, maybe it's good that I don't remember, because I'm sure that's also something that my boss has been announced to talk about.
It's funny.
I think I saw your hand, and I'm definitely coming to you next call after that. Yes.
Do you have something done that you might follow?
Yeah, do you want to follow?
No. So regarding temperature, do you guys tend to bring lower temperatures and incorporate?
I think we do generally have a pretty low temperature on it. I forget if it is all the way 0 or it's just I'll give it 0.1 or 0.01 is more reason for a low, but I feel like it's one of those.
And I just had another question too about have you guys done any proof of concepts of agent workflows where it actually can go you don't want me to tweak this to my setting for you?
That's very on the roadmap. I feel like we're starting to engage with the current project I'm working on. We're doing some land graph stuff, and I think with the graphs, where we're going to maybe ultimately be able to go, or that I feel like the vision that I want to try and mess around with it is sort of having maybe an initial agent graph node situation that's kind of trying to figure out, well, almost like an operator that's trying to figure out which of my companion experts do I want to dial into, because from what I've read, if you also try to throw too many different like tools in like a tool calling situation at a given request, it also starts to like not handle those great. And so like, well, how do you chop those up? Well, you're gonna want to put them in different like maybe like predefined steps. And so we haven't gotten all the way on that yet. But maybe this time next year I would have some cooler stuff to share in in that sort of angle. But that is definitely what we're thinking next. Is we think that in order to keep making it smarter and I've got a teammate that just really loves saying agentic workflows and he's like he's probably right. That's exactly what we need to try and move into it. Kind of have these sub things, and then once the expert knows, then it sends back up to the operator, that maybe is feeding it back to the thing.
Does the teammate also mention MCP all the time?
Not yet, but I do feel like I'm seeing that a lot, and I need to go figure out what that means and how are we doing it. Joel, what do you got for me?
Yeah, so first, shameless self-plug, industrial resolution. All we do every day is elastic work for customers. We're right here in Lancaster, and we're one of 5 elite tier resellers in the nation. So we answer questions like they're being asked all day, every day. Shameless self-plugging. My question is, you're tracking the data of the user, your super user, 70 prompts in a day. How could you use that same customer identifier role of real user monitoring, behavioral analytics in, based on how they're interacting with the front end of the search and chatbot experience to further inform, how to enhance your search channels?
I think between the different APM type data we're collecting, because we try to get the user's email address tagged on at least some layer of the in the being I think we added in like a request header, so then that automatically gets pulled into the APM data that helps us do so. We have not actually done those cross correlations yet and stuff like that. But the good news is that if we got to a place, if we found ourselves trying to start like digging into that, or if somebody came and asked us some of those questions, I do think we have the data in place to be able to then, to power a solution like that, but we haven't engaged in it just yet.
Do you run into any token-based pressure? Like, hey, look, we also want to, you have a rate limiter, but how do you control costs on churning and burning on tokens?
I think we've ended up mostly fortunate in that like our spends have not like reached levels that have like gotten anybody paying attention or concerned. So that's good. But there's something earlier in the
right, like web, and you're doing this for the customer base, but the potential for token churn is huge. Right? So
yes, and then, I guess that's where we try and do the decline requests. If they're trying to do that, we're not specifically looking at how many tokens did an individual person use. But I think we did. Actually, somewhere in there, our APM stuff is not automatically collecting tokens yet, but I think the OpenTelemetry implementation of collecting Azure stuff does include the actual token counts, and I think we would be interested in knowing, who are our biggest users by token counts.
So is there any step in the chat where you decide to bail out and direct them to a real person, like a real customer service agent?
That is a great question, because I've seen that in a lot of chat implementations. No, and I remember that somewhere along the way we were telling ourselves, this is a common thing, this is a lot of how these chatbots work, is it has maybe a little bit of a preset logic flow chart that it's going through, but then it can bail out, and we do not have that capability at all. If you want the person, what you end up having to do is file the support ticket, and then that's what ends up getting you in touch with the person, but you are async it, not synchronously chatting back and forth at that point. And I know we talk about being we need to be very clear about that. I don't know how clear it ended up actually being in the final messaging in there. But that was something we were kind of worried about, is people just yelling I want an agent, where? Yeah.
Yes. What model does the technical option use, where you were uploading
Yes, that is using GPT 4.0 right now. Yes, we haven't deployed like a 4.1 or anything. We do have some stuff that also then actually the thing we were talking about first, that one decides whether, that one has the ability to also query refine by treating the RAG search as a tool call. And so we actually do and I think we might hook that part up to Mini in deciding do you want to rephrase this? What searches should we do to maybe cut out some of the filler words in the question and stuff like that, which was kind of cool. It also let us do a thing where if it noticed there were kind of two topics, it could decide to do 2 RAG searches and then try and combine off of that.
One more.
Sure.
Do you know of like a RAG that focuses on compliance? Maybe something that's SOX certified, something that would be comfortable giving your customer data into, maybe something that's FedRAMP?
If possible at Elastic. I know we have some FedRAMP goals and stuff like that. So yes, I think I'm sure there's a salesperson at Elastic that would love to talk about whatever. The thing that.
Yeah, just strikes me as an opportunity to identify weaknesses in existing documentation. It's have you guys thought about doing either a trend or a sentiment analysis on the questions people are asking to identify areas where existing documentation could be improved?
Interesting. Yeah, I like that idea. We haven't done that, but I think that sounds like a potential application, right? Because somewhere in here, if the document, what's interesting is that it's if they're searching about the topic, that might mean that the documentation is not good, which might then mean that the documentation that's not good is actually coming up very often in the search results. And so so then it's how do you decide? You have to get sentimenty about it, I think, a little bit to understand, is it coming up a lot because this is a really good result? Or is it coming up a lot because the source information is something that people are having a hard time actually digesting and figuring out what to do with it?
Yeah.
I like that. I'm gonna.
Well, I think we're out of time, so let's give Andy a round of applause.